I love Father's Day, don't you? I know you're probably missing your pie, right? Thinking about it. And if you're thinking about it hard, just for your information, I like pecan pie with crushed nuts on top, pecans on top. So just saying, just in case you wonder. Thank you, Carly. It's good to be back. We had a wonderful vacation, getting away. It's a lot of fun. And, you know, one of the best things about this vacation is the cheapest vacation away we have done in years. With COVID, everything was just motel rooms in this part of the country where we have been 5 times, my 5th, Leanne's 3rd, were probably half what we paid the other times. Car was a fraction of what we paid to rent a car. So, but it was getting busier as we were getting back. And I like the way Leanne concluded our trip with the little send-off from Jackson Hole. Have we told y'all this? Lauren, is it okay to say this? Yeah, I've got to say it now. I've made it public. Lauren and Josh are going to be moving back to Ohio. And Josh has been offered a really good position up there with a company he has had a long relationship with. And so it's a good opportunity. They're going to be going right back in the same area where they've been a long time. So I guess we were told this news 2-3 weeks ago. And so this was good to get Miss Leanne away. And we're doing good, Josh and Lauren. We're doing good. As I said to you, man, we want y'all in the Lord's will. But it made for an extra good, it kind of benefited us to be away. A lot going on here at the church, but and that. And so appreciate your prayers for Leanne about that. It's not that it's not a big deal to me, because we love Josh and Lauren a lot. But it's Miles. This is what I was referring to. We do a nighttime routine with the kids every night. And they come up, they have a graham cracker, they've had their baths. Before they go down and have their devotions and prayer time, they come up and spend a little time with us. And Josh and I Miles and I, we can start, Josh, if you want to, but Miles and I got a high five routine we do. And he modifies it usually every other night. It modifies high, low, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. It's just precious. And Toby, we got some stuff going on with Toby too. He likes to give you the high fives and the fist bump. And then they go downstairs, and on the way down, we got all these little sayings that you say to you with your grandchildren. See you later, alligator. After a while, crocodile. So you try to make up new ones. Don't slip on the bathroom tile, Miles. So you got to just come up with new rhymes. But the favorite one is gotta go, buffalo. And so that was why, if you wonder why Leanne shared that one from Colorado, that was, from Jackson Hole, that was as much from Miles as it was for the rest of us. It's good to be back. I love Father's Day, don't you? Even with Dad being gone. I know for some of you, it's especially close, losing parents this soon. Kathy, Taylor, your grandfather. I realize this is, but believe me, for those of us, it's been now 6 years for Dad. These days, some years can be, you make it, you think of nothing but good memories and have great memories, and other times, isn't it true? It's a little more emotional than others. And so, but especially for those of you that this is especially fresh. But aren't you glad, if it is fresh, that you got great memories? Aren't you glad that it's precious? And my thoughts, I changed the message this morning to a message that I shared a number of years ago. It's probably been, somebody will be able to tell me, but it's been a number of years. I tweaked it, shrunk it, and put up the message that I had prepared for the second message on Moses. So I want you to stand with me. Go to the story of the prodigal son, all the way over to Luke, chapter 15. We're going to pick up at verse 17 there at this story, at a pretty familiar place in the story. There were 2 things I need to add. Taylor, what was the one you just said? Oh, Frank Patterson. Frank Patterson is having a heart cath in the morning, so add Frank to the prayer list. Leanne? Pat Patterson. Thank you, Taylor. Thanks, Taylor. Pat Patterson, heart cath in the morning. And Leanne wanted me to let you know, ladies, you're going to begin this Wednesday? You're going to pass out books this Wednesday. You're going to pass out books this Wednesday. Y'all going to do a study on Psalm 23, Philip Keller's book. Old book, but a great book on Psalm 23. So Leanne's going to have the books in class this Wednesday night. Go down to Luke 15 with me, if you would. Verse 17. When he, the prodigal son, finally came to his senses, he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you. I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. So he returned home to his father, and while he was a long way off, his father saw him coming, and filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. But his father said to his servants, quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals on his feet, and kill the calf that we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast. For this son of mine was dead and has now returned to life. He was lost, but now is found. And this is why I brought the New Living. So the party began. Pray with me. Father, this is my prayer for myself, as it has been the first time you revealed this thought to me. I pray it for myself, the dads here, the granddads, the great-granddads. There are things here in this dad that I want to model. I so desperately want my children to see in me. And I pray that the same would be true for all the dads and moms even here today. And I pray you'd help me to convey what you've laid on my heart from this passage in Christ's name. And I ask this in Christ's name, amen. All God's people may be seated, church. I couldn't help but think what a wonderful job you did at your granddad's service. It's a perfect balance of humor, stories, and a tribute to him and representing the Lord. That's the way I still feel about my dad. I suspect many of you feel about your dads. I was blessed to have a good dad. Leanne has got a great dad, and he's been a wonderful father-in-law. I jotted down 8 things that I think, 6 I feel confident were true about this dad. 2, I feel confident that the son felt about his dad, and I hope to clarify them, that I hope that will be true for you and me as parents. The first thing the Lord reminded me, again from this message, is found in verse 17. This son knew his father took good care of his help. He said about his dad, even the servants have food enough to spare. He treated the people who worked for him fairly. Good wages. He may have been the boss of the house, but he took care of the people who served in the field and worked around the house. He understood the importance of having good employees, taking care of them, showing them their importance. It's always been important to me to try to show the people that I'm privileged to serve with here how valuable they are. Been blessed that we've always had men on the board, people on the finance committee who always wanted to show to the employees, the people who serve here, their value and importance. It's good to do. It's one reason why people stay and want to serve. It's because they feel loved and appreciated and taken care of. It's the way we have felt about people that we work for and with over the years. Some treat us fairly and we loved them. Some not so much, and we were glad maybe to go somewhere else or to see them move on. One of the things, if we're privileged to be in a supervisory role or in some responsibility, one of the things, dads, moms, for our kids to see in us, that we treat people the way we want to be treated. Matter of fact, in our country, we could just get this in a better place if we would just live in a way, I want to treat you the way I want to be treated. It would fix a lot of relationships, racially and otherwise, in our country. It's the reason out of high school, my brother and I could both get a job at Ralston Perina, because my dad had a good reputation there as a worker and a co-worker. It's why it was easy for me to get a job at the railroad a couple of years later, because Dad, again, had a good reputation there. This boy knew about his dad fundamentally. Treated people the way he would want to be treated if he was in their shoes. Now, I remind you, those of us who work elsewhere, and that's the vast majority of you, it's just a handful of us that our main responsibility is here. Just Taylor and I, full-time vocation here now. It has been neat over the years for you women and men when people would visit and they would tell me about you. I'm visiting your church because I work with so-and-so. And they have a real testimony of walking with God. They've always bragged on their church. When you have a good reputation at work and you're bragging on God at church, you're the kind of people that could cause people to want to be interested in the God that you go to worship at your church. This is kind of what this son knew about his dad. It's good when we got a good work reputation. It's beneficial. Can I remind you to just pause here again at this first of 8 things. We are not working just for somebody. We're working as to the Lord. And when we work as to the Lord, we want to honor God and treat people the way we want to be treated. One of the best things I hear said about people is how well they treat the people who work with and for them. The second thing, it seemed to me this son, this prodigal, knew about his dad because he knew he could go to his father. Notice in verse 18, I will go home to my father. I've often thought, what made him know he could do that? He just had sent his dad a message. Whatever the time frame, because now he's in the pig pen. He has hit bottom. So we don't know for sure how long in this story Christ is making this story for us, but however weeks, months, time has gone by, he's here at rock bottom, and he believes he can go home to a dad who he sent this message to. I want your money more than I want you. That's how much you matter to me. But still, at rock bottom, he thought he could go home. And one of the things I wanted for my house and I want for my children still as they're adults and my grandchildren and dads, I want you to want it for yourself that no matter what, your children can come to you. We keep a bridge open. I've been with parents whose children have been in the most challenging of spots. And one of the things I've always encouraged them, none of us want to compromise what we believe to be true, but if you can find it in your heart to keep a bridge open, keep it open. Because when they hit whatever bottom is, they're going to need somebody to come to. And one of the best people they could come to would be mom or dad. Never happier than when my children think I have some advice that they can get. Never happier when they sense that I'm approachable. As painful as this boy's leaving had to be for this dad, I can't imagine having a child just say, give me my stuff, I want to get out of here, and then live completely contrary to the way I raised them and pointed them. As bad as that had to be, this dad has somehow conveyed to this boy, I'm here, I'll be here. They don't need our stuff, they need us. They need our time. Whether they're small or teens or adults, they need us. And one of the things that I sense in my heart, this boy knew the lines of communication may be challenged, but they're not broken with my dad. I can go home. The third thing, it seems to me, he knew about his dad. He knew his dad would be home. Highlighted this in my Bible years ago. I'll go home to my father, he said in verse 18 and verse 20. So he returned home to his father. His dad had not checked out. Vivid memories of my dad, even when he was off in the Mediterranean serving in the Marines, was he couldn't wait to get home. When he'd come home, I'd beat my brother to get his Marine sergeant's hat and just wear it around the house. My dad's like a lot of your dads. He just worked all the time. He didn't really have any hobbies, which hobbies are good, Dad. I recommend them. Have some. Have something you enjoy doing. Dad just worked, and it was home. It was work at home. Always home. There was something secure for his 5 children to know that Dad was always coming home. And that's where his heart was. That's why when I was reading that story and shared with you a few years ago about a great man, I mean this sincerely, a great man, Billy Graham. He shared a thought that still strikes me in my core. When he was asked at the end of this interview, what regrets do you have? Do you have any? He listed 2, and one of them was, I wish I had been home more, spent more time with my children. Is your home, is your heart at home? Dad, mom? Your children know if it is and if it's not. The fourth thing I believe this boy knew about his dad was this. And I put felt here because I believe this, but it's fully not conveyed here, and I recognize that. He knew, felt. It's the way I listed this 4 point. His dad would forgive him. Said in verse 18, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you. Said again in verse 21 to his dad when he got in his presence, Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you. Can I pause here? You know when I know from my own life and in the life of other people when they're taking their sin seriously, is when they recognize that it's not just against God, but it's against people. And they recognize it's not just against people, it's against God. Both. The scariest people for this preacher. The people who still to this moment have me awake thinking about them and praying about them at night are people who don't take sin seriously. Here, or how God must view it. There's something this boy saw. We're not told what it is. There's something this boy saw that made him think he could count on his dad's forgiveness. He'd taken all this money and thrown it away, but he was headed back home with a hope, believing, looking, maybe not expecting. Certainly the story indicates that. Well, a fair question to ask is there some forgiveness needed in the family, your family? I remember a Christian tribute a few years ago. I think it was not Caleb, I can't remember which one, 93.3, whichever Christian radio station that is. They were doing a tribute to dads. And a 56-year-old mom was the one that caught my attention as I listened. They had people come on and just give a tribute to their dad. And this 56-year-old mom came on and she talked about 5 years earlier. She finally reached out to her dad. They had a broken relationship. Sought forgiveness, sought to give him forgiveness. And she said this, it's been the best 5 years of our adult lives. I wish it had happened sooner. It's never too late, is it? That's one of the great things about this story. It's never too late to get serious about what we ought to get serious about. Is there a dad who needs your forgiveness? The fifth thing I jotted down was found in verse 19. I believe again knew, I put felt in brackets. Felt his dad would at least give him a job. Verse 19, please take me on as a hired servant. At least I can go home, may not go back fully, but I can go back and get a job with Dad. That's awesome. Sixth thing, he knew his dad had a good reputation. Verse 19, look at it. I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. That's his thought. In verse 21, he conveys it to his dad. No longer worthy of being called your son. That's when you know or think your dad's got a good name and you've tarnished it. Frank Chapman, I say often, don't I, Miss Betty, one of the things I loved about Brother Frank's funeral services, on occasion he would say this about somebody in this community. Their children, grandchildren can go anywhere with pride because he's got a good name. She's got a good name. We're blessed. When it comes to a Father's Day or Mother's Day, when we have lived in a home like that, good reputation. I'm the son of Bill Long. And there's not a single place in my entire life I have gone and felt any sense of concern about letting that be known. That's awesome. Isn't it awesome to be able to do that? Miss Kathy, Miss Betty up here, Mr. William, who've known your dad for so many years, just bragging. It's got to be awesome, doesn't it? Y'all, awesome. To know it. And you know what's more important? Not what they think at church or at the job, but what we know to be true at home. That is phenomenal that this boy, with his complete failure here, could have this sense about his dad. I've often thought about the Grahams. What was it like to be Billy Graham and have a son like Franklin, who was such a prodigal? Ruth gives us a great glimpse into it. They handled it with nothing but grace and prayer and love, which was instrumental in seeing Franklin come home in his relationship with the Lord. Oh, a fair question to ask then is this: how would our children rate our reputation? What would they say? You know what? I say this often. I care about everybody here, but there was no more salvation I cared about in this church family than my children's salvation. Worst thing Leanne and I could have done at our home was not be real about our walk with God in front of these children. I want it to ring true. I want yours to ring true for your children, because my reputation affects my church. And can I say this carefully? I'm the senior pastor here. My reputation affects this church. But I need you to know your reputation in this community has some level of effect about what people think of First Evangelical Church. I wish I could tell you that's a concern that really weighs on me. It just really doesn't that much. What weighs on me more is what your family, who know us most, think about our walk with God. Because if we'll get it right there, we're going to get it right everywhere. And this boy, think about this, a lost and undone son has got some things that at the bottom he can hold on to. And we get a glimpse that a lot of them focused on his dad and who he was. The seventh thing, the son trusted in his father's character and person. I've often thought what the neighbors thought of the father of the prodigal, being somebody. I was sharing with folks in the office. I'm doing way better, but I used to be when I read Rick Warren's book, Purpose-Driven Life, first time, what is that? 2004, 2003, I can't remember when it first came out. Brian, am I in the right hunt? There are a few pages on being a people person, people pleaser, how it's just not a good thing, not healthy. Man, I just was like, God forgive me, I didn't know this was like a sin. I thought it was just how you live. And what's it like to have this reputation? Pause with me. To have this reputation in the community and have two children and one so lost. And the one that's there has got this elder brother syndrome. Kind of glad the boy's back, brother, but why is he getting a big party? I've been hoofing it, doing right. You know who this dad represents to me? Every Christian parent I've ever been with, and talked with, prayed with, who shared with me that they walked into a child's room and prayed and cried, whether they were teens or young adults or adults. He's a picture of a lot of us who spent some sleepless moments seeking the Lord for our children. My heart senses this. He didn't care what anybody thought. He just was storming heaven for his son. Storming heaven for his children. You know what, church? We're at our best when we're thinking less and praying more. Especially for the prodigals. I have found for me, this is the real test of parenthood. Not how am I doing? How do we do when everything's going well with our children and grandchildren and life? But how do we do when things aren't going well? Man, it is challenging then. And I know I didn't always pass the test so well. Boy, sweet Leanne always did. This prodigal's dad must have passed it well. His son trusted in his character and his person. Can I remind you this morning? You, mom and dad, child, you and I, aren't you glad we can trust in the goodness and the character of our God? Always to do what is needed and what is right. The eighth thing I jotted down here. Let me pause here before I get to 8. Remind you, your children are like Bill and Hazel Long's children. They're going to grow up and realize all the sacrifice and love that goes into what we tried to do. Hangest thou in there if your children are still young and at home. The light's going to go off for the vast majority. 8th thing I jotted down here is this. The prodigal's dad did more than he could have imagined, just like our God does. Verse 20, while he was a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His father said to his servants, quick, bring the finest robe in the house, put it on him, get a ring for his finger, sandals for his feet, kill the calf we've been fattening. We got to celebrate with a feast. This son of mine was dead, has now returned to life. He was lost, but now he's found. So the party began. Fatted calf, robe, ring, sandals for his feet. Man, I want to be a dad like that, don't you? I want to be, when I see sincerity of forgiveness and challenge, I want to be a dad, a mom like that. I want to be a person like that my church family could call. When I send a text or contact, they believe it's sincere when I say, as I've been doing regularly with somebody, praying for you, thinking about you. You know what we need, dads, in this great country of ours? We need dads with conviction, but we also need dads with compassion. And our country needs preachers of conviction, of compassion. Ruth Leanne reminded me in my last week, I said, would ask you to play an offertory now. Would you? So would you come play something for me? And Angel, if you feel led to do something, you come. I do want to have an invitation here, and here's how I want to conclude the service this morning. I know it's a little heavier than Father's Day normally is, but I just couldn't get this off my heart last night, this morning. I wonder if there's a dad here who would like to come pray, maybe a mom even. Maybe there's a child or children on your heart today. Maybe there's a dad here like me that I don't want to just live it right. I want to live it in such a way that my children feel like I'm approachable, can come to me. This is a story not just about this dad, but about our great God, who's a God of great compassion and grace. Our example, our prayers, our character, our testimony, our witness could be, mom and dad, what God uses to reach our children, our grandchildren. And it's my prayer that for myself and for you, that God would help us to be the people as a staff here and as parents and as friends that can be influential in seeing people who maybe in our world, our close-up world, our family world, have messed up as much as this prodigal has messed up. Can I remind you, this prodigal was worthy. Not in the sense of checking off worthy. He was doing everything so right. He was worthy of this. In some picture of God's grace, God looked up at a boy who took everything that he felt was owed to him from his dad and wasted it on righteous living. And God saw this boy as worthy of his grace. That's the God we serve. And that's the kind of dad and parents I want us to strive to be. There's somebody on your heart in your world you want to come pray for, and especially if it's you that you just want to talk to the Lord this morning before we go. Going to ask you to come if you would when they sing for us. Going to ask you to stand if you would. God's speaking to you. Won't you come? Won't you come?